Welcome back to the Irresistible You podcast. This is the place to get a dose of empowerment to create the life you crave and deserve. I'm your host, Amy Beltran, the CEO and founder of Irresistible University and irresistibleicing.com. In this podcast, we talk about weight, body image, confidence, and other personal development topics. Welcome to this week's episode. I am talking to you today about a topic that can be a little controversial, and I have my own views on this, and I want to share that with you today. We are talking all about the question I'm going to pose to you. Can you stop dieting and still lose weight? All right. The quick and dirty answer to that question is yes. Hell yes, you can stop dieting and lose weight. Then there's the long and complicated answer. And that answer is, well, it depends, and it's just not that easy to answer. So that's what this podcast episode is going to be about, where I'm going to break down the question, can you stop dieting and still lose weight? Talk about some of the misconceptions that are out there, share some of my beliefs and methodologies with you, and let's just have a conversation about it. So as you're listening, if this is resonating with you, hit me up on Instagram, hit me up in the Facebook group, or leave a rating and review on iTunes, letting me know where or what part of this episode in the podcast is really helpful for you. So let's get started. If you're like me and you are a lifelong dieter, so that was me for pretty much my entire life. I was a dieter, a yo-yo dieter. When you've been that person for so long, the concept or the thought of even letting go of the diet mentality or the concept of dieting, it's absolutely terrifying. Because when we think about letting go of, the being on a diet all the time, letting that go, we think that in exchange, we're letting ourselves go. We're going to let our bodies go. We're letting our fitness go. We're letting go of all of the goals and dreams that we promised ourselves would begin when we got to goal weight. So if we give up the concept of dieting and starting over on Monday and going on the diet, that in turn means we're giving up the big dream that you've told yourself happens at your goal weight. So I hope that makes sense, because that's part of the bigger issue here is dieting has created this illusion that our life begins if we could just lose the 50 pounds, if we could just get to Wonderland, if we could just get to goal weight, okay? So what I want to challenge today is, what if I told you that exact line of thinking is actually what's keeping you stuck? And what if I told you that giving up the concept of dieting altogether is actually the key to losing the weight, loving your body, and creating the life that you crave? So I'm going to talk about a few different points that relate back to the question, can you stop dieting and still lose weight? So point number one is that dieting as we've known it is dangerous and it doesn't work. So what do I mean by that? The actual definition of diet says that it's a regimen of eating and drinking sparingly so as to reduce one's weight. And when you take that actual definition and you put it in the blender with what we call diet culture, that's where you get all of the messages and the confusion and the messages that are sent to you that unless you weigh a certain number or unless you are a certain size, you have no worth and you don't deserve to love yourself and you don't deserve to feel confident and you don't deserve to wear cute clothes. That's what diet culture has done. So when we look at what dieting actually is, it's literally based on restricting your food. And we look at dieting as this temporary thing that we go through. So it's not going to be a permanent thing that we're on. We're going to diet, for the next 6 months or whatever the time frame is, so that we can fit into our dress, so that we can, look hot on vacation or get into our wedding gown, or whatever the goal is that you've set for yourself that has this timeline attached to it. So not only does dieting have a restricted menu of what you're supposed to eat, but there's usually a timeline that's attached to it. And so what ends up happening is that when you don't lose the weight that you're trying to lose in the timeline that you've set for yourself, that's when you then feel like a failure. And that's when the yo-yo diet train keeps on going, right? So you get on this diet, you're going to do it, you start losing some weight, and at some point in the diet, you fall off the train. And the reason for that is because dieting is not sustainable. Dieting is not something that you can do for the rest of your life. It is not something you can do in the long term. When we're talking about restricting your food in that way and taking food and calling some of it good and some of it bad, and then telling yourself you're never going to be able to eat, pizza or cake ever again. So when you start looking at dieting in that sense, that's why it doesn't work, and that's why it creates this yo-yo diet cycle of the gaining and the losing, the gaining and the losing. And I went through that for many, many years. And these last couple years are really the first time that my weight has just kind of almost stayed the same. I've been going down the scale a little bit, but it's basically been the same. And what I mean by that is I haven't gained back the weight at this point, which for me, that's a really big deal. A really big deal. Because I stopped looking at what I'm doing in my life as a diet that's done in a vacuum. That's like, okay, I'm going to put my head down for the next 6 months and I'm going to get the weight off and then I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z. I don't look at my life like that anymore. And even though my weight loss now has been slower, probably slower than it's ever been, it's also been steady and it's been consistent and the weight hasn't come back on. And I'll get into more of that later in the episode as well. This might be a long episode, just to let you know. So, on the other hand, there's other definitions of diet. And the other definitions of diet means habitual nourishment. That's a good thing. It also means food and drink regularly provided or consumed. And it also can mean the kind and amount of food prescribed for a person or animal for a special reason. Right? So if your doctor puts you on a low-carb diet because you're heading into type 2 diabetes, right? That is very different than, the Atkins diet or the Special K diet or the Subway diet or the grapefruit diet, all of these ridiculous fad diets that come out into the market and prey upon our need and our belief that we have to be skinny in order to be a good person, right? So first and foremost, dieting doesn't work in that sense, and it can be very dangerous because it's so restrictive that you're constantly on this up and down path of, okay, I'll start over on Monday, I'll do this again. And it's not sustainable because there's so many things in a lot of these restrictive diets that are not livable out here in the real world. They're just not realistic. There's another side to all of this, though, because talking to you on the podcast, I'm talking to people that have weight to lose. You probably have weight to lose. And there's also, that's why there's never a black and white answer to any of the stuff that I talk about, because there are layers to this, right? There are levels to this game, you guys. And if you actually have weight to lose, then is dieting necessary? Yes and no. Yes and no. So that brings me to my next point, and that is, even if you let go of dieting mentality And I hope you understand what I mean by dieting mentality. Dieting mentality is that I'll start over on Monday, I'll throw all the junk food out of the house, I'm only going to eat, keto, I'm only going to eat low carb, I'm only going to eat blah, 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 blah. I can't have cake, I can't have ice cream, I can't have this. It's putting all those restrictions around what you can and cannot have, right? However, that's the diet mentality. It's the obsessive counting of calories. It's looking at, like I said, looking at certain foods and telling yourself you'll never eat birthday cake again when you go to a party. So you might as well not even go to the party, right? And what kind of life is that? It's not a life. And that's why dieting doesn't work, because you can't live that way, right? You can't live that way and enjoy your life. Because whether you want to believe this or not, eating and food is part of life. And we can say all we want that food is just nourishment, which, yes, food is nourishment. We need it to survive. But we are human beings that are going through an experience. We're human beings that interact with other people. And the way that we interact with people oftentimes is with food and drinks. And that's not going to change. And you shouldn't have to change your life so that you don't have those experiences, right? Because what fun is that? Like I said, that's not a life, okay? However, my second point here is that you still need boundaries, right? And when I say you still need boundaries, I'm talking to people that need to lose weight. I'm not talking to those of you who think that you're fat, who maybe have 10 pounds that you want to lose. This isn't for you. And I'm not trying to exclude you, but this isn't about you and this isn't for you. This is for my girls that are actually overweight. This is for my girls that have weight that they need to lose, because we can't deny the fact that being overweight is completely unhealthy. And this is where I'm going to throw out another controversial belief that I have. There's a lot of people out here in the body image space that believe you can be healthy at any size. And I call complete bullshit on that. There's absolutely no way, no how you can weigh 300 pounds and still be a healthy person. It's not possible. And I will argue that all day long. Right? Your levels might be okay right now, but can you run up a flight of stairs? Can you bend over and touch your toes? Can you sit in a chair, and can you sit in the chair and cross your legs? Can you run after your children? Can you do simple things that require you to be a little bit fit? And the answer is probably no. And eventually, all of that weight that's packing onto your organs and all of that fat, it is going to hurt you. It is going to bring you into high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and the worst possible case scenario. It's going to happen. And I know when I was at my heaviest, I was in complete denial. And I'll just say this right now, is that denial is a big piece of body image issues. It's a big piece that a lot of overweight women who have, and you're in complete denial that your weight has anything to do with anything else in your life. And believe me, it has so much to do with everything in your life. And we'll talk more about that too. So this is for the girls that actually need to lose weight, right? Whether it's 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 40 pounds, whatever. You still need to have boundaries in place, because you can't just go from being a binge eater, being overweight, only knowing how to diet your entire life to, oh, hey boo, just eat intuitively. Oh my God, do not get me started on the intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is absolute bullshit for binge eaters. It's bullshit. Intuitive eating says, hey, just eat what your body wants you to eat. Hey, eat when you're full, eat when you're hungry, and stop when you're full. Okay, let me tell you something. If my body knew how to do that, I would never be fat in the first place, okay? Intuitive eating is so dangerous to tell someone who has been a habitual yo-yo dieter and binge eater to just start eating intuitively. Do I believe that you can get there one day? Sure. Do I believe that you can just go from diet mentality, binge eating to intuitive eating? Hell no. Hell to the no. You cannot do that. You just can't. You just can't. Because intuitive eating takes away all of your boundaries. It takes away all of the, there's literally no restrictions. It's like just eat what your body wants to eat. And then they tell you in the intuitive eating things that, your body's going to gain weight for a little while and that's okay. And I'm going to say something right now. A lot of the people that I see preaching the intuitive eating BS, they're women that I would look at and think, what do you have to complain about, right? Like, you don't have that much weight to lose. Like, you don't have any weight to lose. I see it, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I see it a lot in the girls that complain about the 10 pounds they have to lose. And I talked about this in another podcast episode way back. I can't remember which number it was. But when you are the girl who's always been the fat girl, not because you call yourself fat, but because you have been deemed the token fat girl and you've played that role your entire life, intuitive eating is not going to work for you. And that's where I want to introduce you to how I think about things, what's worked for me, because I've walked in those shoes, right? I know what that feels like. So let's just step back for a second. Can you even imagine intuitive drinking for alcoholics? Can you even imagine telling an alcoholic, hey, you can go to the bar, but just listen to your body. Just listen to your body. Listen to what your body wants you to do. Well, that's ridiculous because if you're an alcoholic, your body is telling you, have the drink, have the drink, have the drink. When you are a binge eater, your body is telling you, eat the carbs, eat the carbs, eat the carbs, eat the cake. Like, that's what your body's telling you. So the second point I'm making here is you need boundaries in your life if you want to stop dieting and still lose weight. So what do I mean by boundaries? Here's what I mean. In my life, I no longer do the start and stop on Monday diet routine. I don't do that anymore. What I do now is I just live my life. And I live my life by eating anything that I really want to eat, but I eat things in moderation. And how do I do that? Yes, I am very selective about some of the things that I eat. And so I try to eat healthy breakfast, lunch, and dinners most days. And then the weekends, I have some indulgences. My gosh, I can't speak. So I also measure my food. I do. Because if I don't measure my food, I don't have the concept to know when to stop sometimes. And like I said, maybe some point in the future, we can all get to a point where we are intuitive eaters. For me personally, I don't know if I'll get to that place. And it might take me a lot longer. And there's nothing wrong with that. So there's nothing wrong with sticking to portion sizes. We're supposed to eat certain portions, you guys. That doesn't mean you're dieting. Measuring your food is not a sickness. You're not this victim of diet mentality because you're measuring your food. When you've come from a place of not knowing when to stop, and you've come from a place of not knowing when enough is enough, you have to have those boundaries in place. And I am still a Weight Watcher member. I firmly, wholeheartedly believe in Weight Watchers and what it stands for, especially the changes that they're making right now and actually moving away from the name Weight Watchers. I firmly believe in that program. Why? Because every time that I'm in Weight Watchers and I'm following the plan, I don't feel like I'm on a diet. I don't feel like I'm dying. I don't feel like I am being restricted into this hellacious yo-yo diet cycle. I eat what I want. I go out to eat. I have drinks. I have margaritas. I have cake. I have all the things that I love with what I just told you at the beginning in moderation. And that moderation is the key to making this a lifestyle and coming away from the diet mentality into a lifestyle, right? Where it gets obsessive is, sure, there are days that I go way over my points, but guess what? I don't care anymore. I don't care. In the past, I would just freak out about that, right? I say, okay, tracking and weighing my food, they are tools. They are tools in my toolbox that help me define the boundaries that I need around food. Because for me, it's still really hard, and it probably always will be, right? If I don't use those tools. And so I use those tools to help me, to keep me focused and grounded, because otherwise, it really goes back to just being mindful. Those tools help me to stay mindful about what I'm eating and how much I'm eating, right? But where I've really changed, like I said, is if I have a day that goes way over points, or, I want to eat a second serving, okay, cool, let's do it, right? I don't have that guilt, like that guilt cycle that I used to have all the time. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, right? So letting go of the diet mentality is number one. And by diet mentality, we're talking about the obsessive yo-yo diet cycle, the looking at food as bad and good and all of that kind of stuff. The second tip here is you still got to have boundaries if you're trying to lose the weight. You have to have boundaries, even if you're not losing weight, because the hard part is getting to maintenance, right? And even when you're at that place where you get where you want to be, you can't just throw it all out the window. It doesn't work that way, right? So you got to have boundaries. You got to have them. You do. Number 3 is getting rid of the phrase and the mentality, the mindset, I'll start over on Monday. So what if you could stop starting over on Monday? And instead, what if you could change your mindset and look at this as one long journey for the rest of your life? What if, right? Maybe that feels overwhelming. Maybe that feels like, oh my gosh, the rest of my life, like I thought this had a timeline. Let's go back to that. Remember what I said about the timeline? That's where diet mentality is dangerous, because you've put this insane, unrealistic timeline around losing weight. And that's the problem, is that you think, I gotta, be on this strict diet for 6 months, and then I'm gonna get to my goal weight, and then I'll go back to being how I was before. You can't, because you're gonna be right back where you started from, which is why the diet mentality just goes on and on and on with the yo-yo. So what if instead you just looked at all of this, eating with boundaries, eating with balance, eating what you want in moderation? What if you looked at all of that as, this is just my life. This is the journey that I am on for the rest of my life. The journey for the rest of my life is not to diet, but it's to eat healthy. It's to eat in moderation. It's to eat balanced meals with the right portion sizes. And that's what has been life-changing for me, is it finally clicked for me that this is one long journey. And I'm on this journey until I take my last breath. And I say that because I'm not the type of person who's ever going to be able to just eat intuitively, to just eat whatever she wants without consequences. And those consequences for me are I gain a lot of weight. So stop starting over on Monday and get rid of that whole mentality, and just start to look at this as it's one journey. So what happens when you start thinking like that is, let's say Wednesday night comes around and everybody from work is going to go to this dinner for somebody's going away party, and you have a few drinks, you have a really good meal, you have cake, you overindulge in all the things, and you have an amazing time. Well, when I was in that start over on Monday phase, something like that would happen. And the next day, I'm like, well, I already messed up. It's the middle of the week and today's Thursday, so I'll just start over on Monday again. And so the rest of the week, I wreck, completely wreck my diet and eat and then start binge eating because I know that I'm going to start over on Monday and be super restrictive on Monday. So between Thursday and Monday, I'm going to binge. And I'm going to binge on all my favorite foods, all my favorite sweets, and all the things that I've told myself because of the diet mentality that I cannot have ever again. And it just becomes a cycle over and over and over and over. But if you can look at it as a journey, and you have that event on Wednesday night, you're like, cool, I had an amazing time. I wanted the cake and I had a piece of cake. I wanted to order the pasta with the 5,000 cheese sauce and I had that. And today is Thursday, and when you eat like that, you're going to feel a little sluggish in the morning. That's okay. Drink your water, have your fruit, have a nice breakfast, make it healthy, and then you get right back on track. And that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Right? You go on vacation and instead of being miserable and not eating the foods that are authentic to that region or that place that you're visiting, you just are miserable the whole time. So instead, now you go on vacation and you have I can't even think of the foods that I want to talk about, but whatever foods where you're going are things that you can only get in that place. Do it. Because again, food is nourishment, but food is also, it's kind of like life, guys. Like, let's be real. Food is life, and food tastes amazing. It's yummy. It's so many things. So why not enjoy it without the guilt, without the restrictions, without the, I'm a big fat failure. I can never lose the weight, right? Because that's the mindset stuff that we got to start working on too. So number 3 is stop starting over on Monday. And that's a mindset. That's a mindset shift, right? And that becomes easier when you do see this as an actual lifestyle change and not a diet, right? Whew, I'm talking a lot today. I told you this was going to be a long episode. So it's a lot to say. And I feel like even in this episode, I am barely scratching the surface with you. Like this is barely scratching the surface of these issues and all of these things that we're talking about. There's so much more that goes into this, but I hope that this is giving you at least a starting place to start thinking about these things and start making these changes, right? Which is why if this is really resonating with you and you're at that place where you need to make changes, I have an amazing opportunity coming up that I want to just tell you about real quick. And that is going to be my free live masterclass where I'm going to go into more detail around some of the things that have helped me transform my mindset, my body, and my life. And in that live masterclass, there's going to be some VIP gifts, including a super big discount to Irresistible You, which is my group coaching program, which actually opens in a few weeks. And if you're at that place where you're ready to make changes, you definitely want to be there. So I'm going to put the link into the notes so you'll receive that. So just keep that in mind because you'll definitely want to sign up for the masterclass and learn more about those secrets that I have, plus learn more about the Irresistible You program that is coming out because we'll talk about all of that in the class. So the 4th tip in this podcast today is, actually, no, we're on number 5. Goodness. Okay. Right? Yeah. 1, 2, 3. No, number 4. Okay. Number 4. So number 4 is, let's just put this out there. Weight loss is necessary for some of us. Weight loss is necessary for some of us. Again, this goes back to what I talked about with the intuitive eating girls. I see people saying, stop wanting to lose weight, stop dieting, stop, and just start intuitive eating and stop worrying about the weight. Okay. Again, none of this has a black and white answer, so I want to speak on this. In some cases, losing weight is life-saving. Okay? Life-saving. Being a certain weight is unhealthy. It can cause premature death. It causes diseases. And that's just that side of it. Being a certain weight affects your mood, your depression, your anxiety, your mental health. So it affects you in all areas when your weight is really high, okay? And there's a lot of people out here, which I think they are super dangerous for doing this, that are saying you don't need to lose weight, health at every size, whether you're 300, 400, 100 pounds, it doesn't matter. No. Not losing the weight when you're morbidly obese, that is dangerous. That has long-term effects. So when your weight is negatively impacting your life, your quality of life, your ability, again, to sit in a chair, to tie your shoes, to run up the stairs, to chase after your kids, that's a problem. It's a problem. And I don't have to tell you that because you already know it. And then this brings up the question, well, if I love myself and I love my body, I shouldn't have to change it, right? Well, again, I don't have the simple answer for you because you should only be going on this weight loss journey because you love yourself enough to treat yourself better. Because being overweight is a side effect of something bigger. It's a side effect. Whether you gained weight through a prescription, sometimes that happens. Whether you've gained weight from a traumatic event, or you have a mental health disorder like depression or anxiety, weight gain is a side effect of something bigger. So when that weight is actually impacting your way of life, your quality of life, you do need to lose the weight. Now, you shouldn't lose the weight just so that you can get to a place where you love yourself. Does that make sense? So when we're in diet mentality says put your head down, go on this restrictive diet for 6 months, and then when you get to the goal weight at the end, then you can work on loving yourself. Then you can feel confident. Then you can go wear makeup. Then you can wear the sexy dress. That's what diet mentality is telling you to do. So when you get rid of the diet mentality, you can do it from a place of love. You can lose the weight because you realize you're treating yourself like shit. You're putting yourself last and you don't love yourself, which is why you binge eat. This is why you have gained the weight. So when you come from a place of realizing I have to be better to myself, I have to start loving myself and loving my body. And one of the ways I'm going to love my body is to eat better. One of the ways I'm going to love my body is to eat with boundaries and moderation. One of the ways I'm going to love my body and love myself is to be more active and get outdoors and start walking. One of the ways I'm going to love myself and love my body is to go do activities that I actually really love to do. Another way I'm going to love myself and love my body is to stop wearing sweatpants and go get the actual size that I am right now, no matter where I am on the journey, because I deserve to look put together, because I deserve to look like I put effort into myself. And a lot of times we don't do that because we are afraid of people judging us, to think, who do you think you are? You can put yourself together, but you can't lose the weight. That's a whole nother thing. You got to let that go. You got to let go of what other people think of you. You've got to let go of what someone else might say. Because let me tell you something. Someone else's opinion and view of your body says a hell of a lot more about their body image than it does about yours. Because if someone is that obsessed about how much you weigh, what size you are, and what you're wearing at your size, that's not your problem. That's on them because they have issues, because they don't have confidence. They don't have the self-love to go out and rock the shit out of a hot dress. They don't have it. So when they see you doing it and you don't have the quote unquote perfect body and you're not skinny, they can't understand who do you think you are. They don't understand. And remember, that's on them. That's not on you. So if you're in a place where you do need to lose weight, you have permission to do that. It's okay. It doesn't mean that you're unhealthy. And that's what I am sick and tired of hearing out here in this space, is to stop doing intentional weight loss. You guys, there are people dying because they're too heavy. There are people getting diseases that are only caused from obesity. And I can tell you, when I was at my heaviest, I went 9 or 10 months without a period. That's not healthy. I could not walk around my college campus without feeling like I was going to die. And I was in my 20s. That should not have been the case. I used to wear boots. They were like ankle-high boots, and I would wear them with the zipper down because they wouldn't zip up. And I was in such denial of my size that I told people I was just rocking a new style. It looked so stupid. So stupid. So, again, you have to get out of that denial and realize where you're at, and realize that sometimes weight loss, it's necessary in order for you to live the best, most irresistible life that you can live. But it doesn't mean you're unworthy. It doesn't mean you can't love yourself. It doesn't mean you can't be confident in who you are. And matter of fact, what I always say is that you should be coming from a place of self-love and confidence that is pushing you to lose the weight. Because when you do it that way, instead of coming from a place of, I hate myself, I hate my body, it's so disgusting, I'm so fat and gross, I just need to lose the weight and then I'll love myself. That's never going to happen. And that's why you've been on a yo-yo diet cycle your entire life. That's exactly why. And I told you earlier in the podcast that I'm at a place right now where this is the longest that I have basically sustained my weight, right? Since I had my daughter. And I've been on a weight loss journey, and the weight is coming off, and it's coming off slow, and it's coming off steady. But what I will tell you is I have not gained back that weight, that baby weight. And if this would have happened 10 years ago, when I was still in the diet mentality cycle, I would have been back to my pregnancy weight and probably plus 50 pounds or more, because I was not awake to all of this yet. And so if you're listening to this now and you're still in that place, know that it's going to get better. I promise you it's going to get better. So this tip here was, weight loss is necessary sometimes. It just is. And if you want to live a certain type of life, then, weight loss is necessary. And so you just have to, again, that whole thing, this whole concept comes with all of these other things that you have to learn about how to look at weight loss in a healthy way, how to love yourself, how to feel more confident, how to not base the weight loss goal and make that the center of your universe, and that if you don't get to that goal, nothing else matters. You have to change all of that thinking, right? So the next thing that I'm going to talk about here, which I kind of just spoke on this a little bit, is to stop waiting for the weight. I say this all the time. It's just like one of my phrases that I say constantly because it's so true. When you're in diet mentality and diet mode, the concept of what we call goal weight is actually holding you and your life hostage, because the dieting culture promises you that your life will begin and only begin once you get to goal weight. And once you get to goal weight and you have the perfect body, then everything you've ever hoped, wished, and dreamed for is going to happen and come true. And you have believed this for so long that you've put your life on hold, right? The dreams, the goals, the aspirations, all the things that you had for yourself are sitting in the closet along with your skinny jeans, waiting for you to get to goal weight. So you've taken this number, you've given a number so much effing power that you have missed out on maybe years of your life because you're waiting to get to this magic number, and you're trying to get there by yo-yo dieting. You're trying to get there by, restricting your food and just putting your head down and going on the diet, and it never works because it's so restrictive. So see how this is a big cycle? This is one big, crazy, dirty, complex cycle that just keeps going and going and going until you make the decision to say no more. I have to change this. I have to put a stop to this. I have to figure out how to do this for myself and how to stop. Because life is short. Your life is happening now. Your life has been happening. It's going to continue to happen whether you're fat, whether you're skinny, whether you're in the middle, whether you're losing weight, whether you're not losing weight. Your life is happening. So there's no benefit in putting everything on hold for an imaginary number. Think about that. It's not a number that you care about if you really dive deep. It's a feeling that you want. You want to feel amazing and irresistible in your own skin. You want to do the things that you see everybody else doing, and you want to do them without worrying about the weight limit. You just want to wake up, throw on a pair of cute shorts and a tank top, and live your damn life. But the dieting mentality, the diet culture has told you you're not allowed to have those things because you are a piece of shit because you're fat. Because you're fat, you're not allowed to have fun, to have love, to have confidence. You're not allowed to have those things. And so when you're in that place and you don't have confidence and you don't have the self-love for yourself, the things that you are tolerating from your relationships, from your job, and just from your life in general, they're not things that someone who loves themselves and feels confident would ever in a million years tolerate. And you're tolerating it because you don't feel good in your own body. And because of that, you don't love yourself. And when you don't love yourself, every single thing in your life will suffer. Everything. Everything. Why do you think it is when someone goes through a transformation, all of a sudden it seems like their relationships change, their job changes, their friends change, because they realize they deserve better. They deserve better than what they've been tolerating. And none of this is your fault yet. None of this is your fault because you didn't realize this stuff gets fed to us subconsciously all the time. It's fed to us and fed to us. And that's why one day you look in the mirror and you're like, who the hell is that? I don't recognize her physically, and I would never act like that person that's in the mirror. And you don't realize who you are anymore. That's what happens. So stop waiting for the weight to feel worthy. Losing weight is not a prerequisite for loving yourself. And I know that's super hard when you look in the mirror and you're so overweight and you see the fat rolls and the stretch marks and the stomach and you cringe because you can barely stand to look in the mirror at that person. I know how hard that is. And that's why I'm here with you. And that's why it's one small step at a time. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. You didn't get here overnight. You didn't gain the weight overnight. You didn't gain these rules and this mentality overnight about how you think of yourself. It happened over time. And to get better and to heal happens over time. And I'm here to help you and hold your hand because I have walked in your shoes and I understand so much. I'm going to cry. I understand exactly how you feel because I've been there. And I've done the work to understand what it takes to come out of that dark, muddy place. I know what it takes, and I have the tools for you to get out of that place. So losing weight because you hate yourself will never change anything. Think about, what has hating your body done for you so far? What has that done for you? If you don't start working on loving yourself and shed what I call the inner fat girl, because the inner fat girl is the mentality. She's the dieter. She's the yo-yo diet queen. She's the I'll start over on Monday girl. She's the I hate myself, I'm so fat girl. That's the inner fat girl. None of the physical weight loss will ever be permanent if you don't get rid of the diet mentality with the inner fat girl. And even if you lose all the weight and you keep it off, you're still going to be carrying around hundreds of pounds of emotional weight and self-hatred, which keeps you stuck in the same relationships, the same job, the same place in life, when you are capable of so much more. So I promise you, and I speak from experience, that the only way you will ever make this journey for life, is to love yourself now and to stop waiting for the weight. Because your self-worth is not attached to a bullshit number on the scale. It's not attached to a clothing size in your jeans. You have worth and you have value now simply because you're a human being, and there's no prerequisite for that. Whew, that was a lot. I told you this episode is long. So what's the answer? Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here once you start to realize these things? Well, I've done the work for you. I've gone through the journey, and I came up with the system that works. I have a system and a process that actually works, this framework. You hear me talk about it all the time, the Irresistible You framework. And you need a system and a process that looks at all the areas of your life, not just at your weight, because that's the thing. This isn't just about the weight. Remember what I said. Weight is a side effect. It's a side effect of a bigger issue. And you need something that doesn't focus solely on dieting, but focuses on a balanced alignment of your entire life and lifestyle that looks at your mind, your body, your soul. And that's what Irresistible You does, my group coaching program that is coming out, or is reopening for enrollment, should I say, in a couple of weeks. So I want to end the episode here. And again, remind you that if this is resonating, if you are ready for change, if you want to know more, I encourage you to go and sign up. It is 100% free to go to the live masterclass that I am hosting on February the 5th. And in that masterclass, I'm going to share more of my secrets that I have learned along the way that have helped me to create and live the irresistible life that I always wanted. And I'm also going to share with you more about the Irresistible You coaching program, as well as you're going to get a crazy discount if you attend the webinar live. So that link is down in the show notes. So check that out. All you have to do is put your name and email address. I will send you over all the details, including the link to the training, so that you can attend live when it happens. I love you guys. Thank you so much for rocking out with me here on the Irresistible You podcast. I love having these conversations with you. Leave me a DM on Instagram, or shoot me a message in the Facebook group if this really struck a nerve and resonated with you, or if you just want to know more about any of the things that I talked about here today. And again, I would love if you could leave a rating and review over on iTunes. Feel free to share your journey with us on Instagram using the hashtag IrresistibleYou. That way I can see all the amazing things that you're up to. So until next time, stay irresistible, and I will talk to you soon.